Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ramadan Mubarak. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Healthy Muslim in Ramadan. We've been exploring ways by which we make ourselves sick. We've been exploring how to keep ourselves healthy. We've been exploring tawakkul Allah, how to trust that everything that happens in our lives is in the hands of Allah, and we must entirely trust His provision and understand not just passively but actively the meaning of it. When we're sick, of course we must ask for shifa, we must ask for healing. We don't know what Allah's decree is. It might be that we are to be restored to full health. It might be that we are to be restored to partial health. It might be that this is the time for us to die. Either way, at the time of your illness, you must be powerfully connected to Allah, because that's the point of it. That's the point of being sick. We're reassured that for every disease there is a medicine, and if that medicine is applied to the disease, he will recover by Allah's leave, and that Allah has not sent down any disease, but He's also sent down its cure. The one who knows it, and the one who does not know it, does not know it. So that hadith shows that there are lots of people that don't realize that Allah is in charge. And however much we think we're clever in spending fortunes in pharmaceutical industry and technology, developing cures for medicine, all of this is happening by Allah's leave. We are guided by the Prophet and by his advice to people that they were to seek medicine, to seek the tradition of the healer, to seek the modern doctor with his technology, because all of it is by the provision of Allah. What He wants to happen to you is going to happen, even if the person who is giving it to you has no idea and is utterly unconscious that he is a vehicle of Allah's provision. Of course, we're not allowed to use treatments which are haram. There are very few, actually. We'll go into those later in the medicines that we can't have and the types of technological development that are outside our ethical boundaries. But in the main, everything that is available is within our provision in terms of what we may seek for healing. It is in a strong hadith, Allah has sent the disease and the cure, and has made for every disease the cure. So treat the sickness, but not with anything forbidden. However, the excitement of medicine and the doctor and the paraphernalia of treatments should not disguise the fact that profoundly the center of our healing is in the hands of Allah, and therefore, if we are conscious sentient beings, we must acknowledge this and be in very close contact with Allah. As Muslims, there is a rich tradition that we should seek the guidance of Allah from the Quran. The phrase ruqya refers to the use of the Quran itself as a healing. And if Allah touches you with harm, none can remove it but He. And if He touches you with good, then He is able to do all things. We are in the hands of Allah. Surat Tahwir. You cannot will unless it be that Allah wills. And He is the Lord of Alameen. We can't even want something without Allah putting that idea in our head. Everything is in His provision for us. Everything is in his understanding. Surat Yasin, verily his command, when he intends a thing, is only that he says it to be, and it is. Kun fayakun. Simple. If everything is possible with Allah, why should we not ask? Surat Yunus. And if Allah touches you with harm, there is none who can remove it but He. And if He intends any good for you, there is none who can repel His favour, which He causes it to reach whomsoever of His slaves He will. He cured my patient with lung cancer, who never stopped cursing Him. Every third word was a curse. And Allah cured him. Alhamdulillah. Allah is in charge. And we are not to ask why He favours one person or another. His way is not ours. So all medicine will fail if this is Allah's will. And the most unlikely of medicines will succeed if this is Allah's will. And then, of course, there will come a time when medicine fails. And we know that too. In Munafiqun it says, and Allah grants respite to none when his death is approaching at his appointed time. The decree was set so many moons ago you cannot imagine or count them, in an eternity which we cannot understand. Our time span is known. It's very short. Compared to the dimension of the cosmos, our life is nothing. Is nothing. Compared even to this planet, the planet Earth, we know will last about 6 billion years. We're around about 3.5 billion years into the life cycle of the planet. Man has been here for about 100,000 years. If you just think of your life on this planet compared to the 6 billion years before which the planet will die, you think you're important, as indeed you are, extraordinarily important as a creation of Allah. But if you start to think that you can somehow control this universe that Allah has created, think of the time span of your life. If you assume that your life is 100 years, and the life of the planet Earth, an insignificant planet in an insignificant galaxy, in an utterly enormous universe, back to the planet. If you think your life is significant, consider that your life on planet Earth, only 6 billion years. If you imagine 1 year of your life as the life of the planet, 1 year of your life, 1 calendar year, your human life, in comparison with the life of the planet, is a blink of the eye at 4:30 on June the 23rd. Do the maths. That's who you are. For you, the experience is dramatic. But in the totality of the universe, you are tiny, fragile, and very, very transient. Our transience is what we must understand, and we must be connected deeply with meditations on who we are. The Quran reminds us that endlessly. But in the Quran, we have in itself a healing. We have the example of our Prophet, peace be upon him, that he would use Surat al-Fatiha as a healing for patients. He would recite Surat al-Fatiha, he would blow on his hands and place his hands on the patient. There's a very funny story about the Bedou who were taught his own traditions. And they came across a tribe who were very mean to everybody. And so they were about to leave when suddenly the head of this tribe got bitten by a scorpion. Ah! So they were leaping around and said, help, help, can't you help us? He's been bitten by a scorpion. And they knew that this tribe, the Quraysh, they had some traditional healing methods. So they said, all right, we'll help you. So they took some saliva, recited Fatiha on it, put it on the scorpion's sting, immediately it went. So they said, well, you were very mean to us. Give us something as a result of this healing. They said, okay, we'll give you some goats. So the Bedou returned to the Prophet and said, oh, this is what happened. We recited Surat al-Fatiha, and because they've been so mean, we know that you say that we should do healing for free, but because it's from Allah, when we're reciting al-Fatiha, we can't charge for it. But they'd been mean to us, so we got some goats. The Prophet, peace be upon him, who had a great sense of humour, said, who taught you about that? Give me one of the goats. But it shows how easy it was for those who were in proximity to the Prophet to use these traditions of healing in part of their daily life, like it was no big deal. The Prophet used prayers. He used the recitation of the Quran. He used his own remedies, honey and worship. He used advice from the physicians and many other things. Let's talk some more. Come back after the break. Thanks. Welcome back. We were talking about the Quran and prayers from the Quran as a healing. In Iqraa it says, and we send down of the Quran that which is a healing and a mercy for those who believe. In Ashura it says, and when I am ill, it is God who cures me. In Surat al-Isra it says, say, O Muhammad, the Ruh is one of those things, the knowledge of which is only with my Lord. And of knowledge, mankind has been given very little. Have trust in how little of the picture of Allah and His powers that we have. And if we know so little, we can dare to ask for more than we can possibly imagine. That is the point of knowing that Allah is all-powerful. In our prayer, in our use of the Quran, we can't just pick it up and read it like a novel. This is a very profound book. And when we're going to use it, it's very important to apply certain conditions. We must be conscious. Be conscious meaning attentive. More than attentive. I'll use a Buddhist word, mindful. Much deeper than the context of attentiveness. It means that not only is the only thing you're looking at and dealing with is the Quran, you also have a deep understanding of the power of this book. This is not a trivial exercise. You must be clean. Clean in heart, clean in body. You must have wudu. You must wear clean clothes. The cleanliness is an external ritual to allow your heart to be open and to see more clearly. You can't see through a veil of dirt. You must have belief, profound belief, not head belief. Profound knowledge that your dua will be heard and will be answered. It may not be the answer you're looking for, but Allah is close. He is closer than your jugular vein. There are some special times to pray, but if you're in distress, pray any time. That is no problem. They're good places to pray. But you may not be able to travel to Mecca, Medina or Jerusalem. So pray where you are. Allah sees you wherever you are. It's preferable that you should be alone and quiet. Before you start praying, ask for forgiveness. Know that we all goof. We all make mistakes. Allah makes us to fail. He's in charge of everything. He makes us fail in order that we ask for His mercy, His compassion, His forgiveness. And we are able to turn to Him. That's the point. When you're going to pray, start with Bismillah, in the name of Allah. Everything's in the name of Allah. Pray salawat to the Prophet. Prophet Muhammad must be on your shoulder when you're reading Quran. It was revealed to him. If you have him on your shoulder and you know he's going to show you the meaning, and let the meaning of the Quran into the heart, into your heart, and into the thing that you're going to ask him to do, it's more likely to happen. I want to tell you a true story. I cannot, as a physician, explain what I saw. What I did know was the sincerity of the people that I was with, and their complete faith that Allah has the power of healing. I was in Syria, in Damascus. Oh, may Allah bring peace to Damascus. It is such a beautiful place. I was with some people in a maqam. I was praying, getting guidance, and I was asked by the sheikh to go and see somebody who was sick in the village. I said, of course. I went down to this family, very modest little house, poor family. And I walked in, they looked really worried, and I saw why. Lying on a small bed was a baby about 2 years old. The baby was motionless, lying, we call it in medicine in the frog position. The baby had no muscle tone at all. He was lying with his arms flat on the bed, his legs completely flat. No movement at all. The baby's eyes were sunken, the eyes dull, there was no blink. His eyes were crusted. There was a deep grey blackness around his eyes. The mouth was crusted. What I could see inside this half-open mouth was a tongue that was completely dry. It was obvious the baby had an extremely high fever. I could see from his breathing it was shallow, fast, and inconsistent. The nostrils flared with every breath, and there was intercostal recession, a sign that the lungs are working really hard to get air. And that probably means that there's congestion in the lungs, fluid in the lungs, which is a sign of heart failure. It's a sign of very advanced septicemia. The pulse I could see in the neck was rapid, going at around about, certainly over 200. The skin was shrunken. When I picked up the skin on the baby's arm, and the baby didn't move when I did this, the skin didn't go down. It was completely lax. The belly was swollen. When I put a finger behind the baby's loins, the baby cried. Not a vigorous cry, just no response. I've worked at Great Ormond Street. I recognized immediately this baby had advanced septicemia, profound dehydration, condition called acidosis. Kidneys were failing, probably had heart failure, and the whole thing was due to a urinary infection, a kidney infection. This baby was close to death. If I had been in England, I would have called an ambulance, I would have got the baby to hospital. There would have been a dramatic scene. We would have put up drips, correct the acid-base balance, got the baby into an intensive care, probably put the baby on a ventilator, and given at least 1, possibly 2 antibiotics. Baby might have had to have renal dialysis. But I was in a poor family's house in the middle of Syria. The family, that treatment didn't exist in Damascus, and the family couldn't have afforded it anyway. I felt powerless, ashamed, as a doctor is in a situation where they know they can't do anything. I felt I ought to comfort the family, and kind of without quite knowing why I said it, I suggested they got some water, Iqraa water. This is water where people have left water open when there's been prayers, and the water absorbs the energy of the prayer. That actually has been demonstrated to be true in physics. And I suggested that they prayed Fatiha on the water, and every 10 minutes with an eyedropper just put a little bit of water in the side of the baby's mouth, and that they continue to do that through the night. And I left certain that the baby would die within 3 or 4 hours. The following day was Friday, and I saw the father coming to Jummah prayer. I was a bit surprised because he looked fine. I thought these Syrians are pretty tough people, because he looks completely accepting that it's Allah's provision that his baby should die. When I'd returned the night before, I was cross-questioned by the sheikh, who seemed very interested in modern medicine, and he was asking me, what would you have done at Great Ormond Street, and exactly what is acid-base balance, and exactly how would you have done that, and what sort of saline would you have put up. And I was explaining about calcium in acidosis and exactly what sort of antibiotic. I was saying, look, what's the point in knowing all this, because you know we can't do this in Syria. Anyway, he just seemed to be interested in what could happen with medicine. Got to evening, so I asked the sheikh if I could go and see the family. He said, yeah, by all means. So I went down, hoping to offer them some comfort, and went in to the house. And the baby had a birthmark on the front of its forehead. And I saw a 2-year-old happy baby with a birthmark in the front of its forehead, bouncing up and down in a bouncer, perfectly all right. So I asked the family what had happened. And they said, we did exactly as you said, and we prayed over the Iqraa water, and every 10 minutes we took a drop out of it, put it in the baby's mouth, and every time we reminded Allah that He heals whom He wills. And it got to about 3:30 in the morning, and quite suddenly the baby took a deep breath, and he curled up, and he sighed, and he appeared to go to sleep instead of that funny breathing he had. And we were really tired, so we went to bed, and then we got woken up because he was crying and hungry. Even in Great Ormond Street, that baby would still have been in intensive care, and he would have had an illness of several days. I did not cause his healing. No way. But Allah heals whom He wills. And it helps if you have absolute faith and trust in Him, as this family did. Please come back for more. Thank you for being with us. Assalamu alaikum.